Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN
630. Hi, everyone.
It's getting more and more unhinged. I'm just telling you that.
I mean, you got to switch it up.
Do you? I don't think you do.
You just want me to do the normal hey babies?
I mean, don't devolve it over 3 seconds.
Can't help it.
You go from normal human being to caveman in 3 seconds.
Hey, babies. What's up? Happy Thursday, everybody. I would like to start today with the continued ramp up of Bill Belichick will not be with the New England Patriots and how many different reporters are linking him to Washington.
Mm-hmm. What exactly do you want to unpack there, buddy?
Here's the problem with this for me, because in any year past, over the last 20 years, I could give you a pretty good feel of whether there's any real truth to that at all. And this is the first time that I can't, because I don't know the thinking of this ownership group.
Correct.
And I don't think anybody knows the thinking of this ownership group. Otherwise, I think the report should be a little either more definitive that it is going to be Washington or is unlikely to be Washington. Instead, everybody is just saying all the reporting now is that he won't be there next year.
Right.
And that he will go somewhere else. Dan Orlovsky said he heard, and he qualified by saying, I'm not a reporter. It's just what I've heard, and then stopped himself when he was pressed on where do you think he's going. And he said, I'm not going to say that, because he didn't want to put out there something that may or may not be true, which was smart on his behalf not to do that. The Boston Globe, the week before the Commanders game, put out pieces saying that it's basically over, and they even insinuated he might be left in Germany if they lose.
Which you and I really knew. It was
not going to happen.
Never going to happen.
No. Well, because what didn't make sense with that is if you fire him, he goes and signs with somebody else. And then you don't get compensation. And of course you're going to get compensation for him. So they're going to trade him to somebody.
That's right.
And because I don't know the thinking of this ownership group yet, it is hard for me to totally blow it out and say, guys, it's wishful thinking. It doesn't add up totally to me. But that said, I don't know. And so I want to leave open the possibility that I just don't know the answer to this right now. Like with this changes a lot of things. Like previous ownership group, when everybody talked about RFK, I would say, I know that Dan Snyder would like to go there. He's been trying to go back there. There's been a lot of red tape for a lot of reasons. But because of that, I am fairly confident that they will not go back to RFK. New ownership group comes in, and I can't answer the question as definitively as I would have in the past.
Yeah.
Same thing goes here. I don't know that a decision has definitively been made about this staff and the structure of the team. I think we all see where it's heading if the team doesn't rally and make it to the playoffs.
Right.
But we'll see. And I've always kind of been like, they've basically told me they're going to let the season play out. I take them at their word that they're going to let the season play out. It hasn't gone very well through 10 weeks, and we'll see where it ends up, in January. But this reporting is ramping up so much, and so many people are linking him here, and they're saying things that there are a couple parts of this that I'd be willing to at least listen to, which is, would the new ownership group want to make an all-time splash by bringing in what will eventually be the all-time winningest coach in NFL history to be their first major hire? And it's hard for me not to at least listen to that. So I'm willing to listen to that that's a possibility here. I still think for a variety of reasons, it doesn't totally make sense to me. But because I don't know how Josh Harris really thinks about this, it's hard for me to totally dismiss it. And it's ramping up so much, and there's so many people that it's like this out secret that he is going to leave the Patriots after this year, amicably and through some kind of trade, obviously, that I don't know how to ignore it now.
Yeah.
For the last couple of weeks, I've been like, guys, let me just tell you why I don't think this is going to happen. And more so, not that it couldn't, but this is why I don't think it will happen. But now there's too many people and there's too many fires going. And there's too many things suggesting he will be somewhere else. And it all comes back to being linked to this place or one or two other specific places. I think we all know where the openings are going to be, or at least we expect the openings to be. This could be a Craig Counsell situation where if he's available, somebody you're not thinking of might pop up out of nowhere, not Kansas City, but like there might be like, I don't think when the season ended that we thought David Ross was being fired. They only did it specifically for this one guy.
Yep.
And because it's Belichick, I could see where a number of teams go, well, because it's this one guy, I guess we would do it.
Yeah.
Like there's only a handful of places. Like I don't think Philadelphia would. I don't think Kansas City would. I don't think San Francisco would. I don't think the Rams would unless McVay hints he would retire again, which he's done a couple of times. But that's about it. Everybody else to me is like, if he's available, would they look into that? Like, I wouldn't even take Cincinnati off the table because of who they have and where they've been, and they've been really, really close. And this year, we'll see how it goes. A big game for them tonight. We'll see how it goes because mainly, I think, because of Burrow's injuries early in the season slowed them.
Sure.
But still, they're one that I would not even throw out. I would look at and go, they're kind of right there. Would they do this to bring in the greatest coach of all time for whatever run he has in him because it's set up for him to win? I don't know. Like, I'm not suggesting they would, but like, that's what I think there's a Craig Counsell part of this, that there might be a couple teams that are looking at this that have no inclination to fire their head coach, but because he's available, you might be surprised who's interested in him.
Sure. I also, though, I think it's worth noting, like you mentioned the Bengals, I don't think Kraft's trading them in the AFC.
I don't think so either.
So
I think this is kind of like a Russ thing. Like they're not like one of the like Russ didn't want to come here or Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I also don't think the Seahawks wanted to trade him to an NFC team.
That's right. Exactly.
So that was like both interests. He didn't want to play here or Philadelphia, and Seattle didn't want to trade him to the NFC on the just in case he's Russ again. And then they look stupid when they're playing him down the stretch and he's beating them to go to playoff games and potentially more.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. So would it be, like, is it going to be in this case an NFC team? Like, because I've seen a lot of people say the Chargers. A lot of people are saying that one too, because I think the writing's on the wall on Staley. And, that means the GM would be in trouble here too, because Belichick would come in. This feels a little out of character for them to do something like this because they're family-run operation. They haven't done things like this in the past. They haven't tried to acquire the crazy name coach. They've never done it before. So it'd be interesting if they did, right? It'd be very interesting if that's not totally true. They did bring in Marty, they did bring in Norv, but it's not the same level. Like they brought in established coaches before, but they didn't, not at the same, not like this. It's not like
Mike
this.
Shanahan was that level. I would make that argument.
Not for the he didn't coach Chargers.
Or not the Chargers, sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like the Chargers,
right. Yep.
So for them, I've seen them linked there, and it's mainly because they're floundering and they've got Herbert.
That's right.
Right? And everyone looks at landing spot for someone like him. Does he want to go somewhere where he doesn't have it set up for him to win? And that's why I bring up Cincinnati here, where would you be shocked, if they were somehow interested, if Cincinnati either doesn't make the playoffs because they're in a really tough division, or gets in but goes out really fast, and they're starting to see this window, and they just paid Burrow, and they've got to pay Chase, and it kind of has to happen now for this team that they have. Like, they'll have a runway with Burrow, but like, team's going to look different because of the salary cap. Do they think that maybe it's time to do it? And I'm not suggesting they will, but all I'm saying is off the Craig Counsell thing, the Cubs did this because they thought they had an opportunity to get somebody that was special. Would a team would a team that you wouldn't think would be looking for a coach be open to this because they might get someone who's special?
Right.
So that's why I think the door's more wide open than I think people think.
With the Bengals, they're not going to do it because he gets paid too much. I just know that organization.
They also, same thing, like the Chargers don't typically do this.
Right.
They might get established guys, but they don't typically hire the guy who's going to cost them $25 million a year.
Right.
And they've always, family-run operation, run their team.
That's right.
They wouldn't do that here.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike Brown is specifically in on all of the deals. Like, they have a GM, but they're specifically in on all the deals. Belichick wants, the ownership's over here.
This is why the other day I said my 2A, 2B were the Commanders and the Giants, simply because if it ramps up to, all of a sudden, you are now then not unlike a player, kind of bidding so your rival doesn't get him either. Like, that's where I think it could heat up there, that if the Giants fire Daboll or wait to see if they can get him, then fire Daboll.
Well, and then here's the double whammy. What if Daboll wants to go back to the Bills?
Right.
And the Bills' job is open, and they trade him to the Bills?
They do 2 coach trades. Yeah, but then the Bills
is that really out of the realm?
Yeah, but then the Bills just go, you have 2 head coaches. Good luck with that.
Well, they also may be like, if you're going to hire Belichick, we're just going to wait you out.
Yes,
right. And we know that Daboll's going to come here.
Yeah.
And then everyone's going to scream and yell about minority hirings and all that stuff. But that's the guy who got through to Allen, and he makes the perfect sense to go there and be their head coach if the Giants are going to actually walk away from Daboll. And unless they're going to get Belichick, I would actually say to them, I don't think you should do that, personally. Right. I actually think he's a very good coach. I think he's had a lot of bad things happen to his team this year, and it was predictable. I said this when the schedule came out. I go look at their schedule. They're going to fall back because it's too hard. You'll see in the beginning of the year, they won all these one-score games with a marginal roster last year, because it's set up for them. This year, they're playing all these tough teams. They're going to lose a lot of these games, and their record's not going to look good. And then it spiraled because they had 1 million injuries, and now they can't recover from it.
Yeah.
And so their season's a wash. But if I were them, I would want to take a step back and go, do we really want to change things again? Or do we really feel like we actually have a pretty good coach? And let's run it back because we had a lot of circumstances go against us. And I think that if I were them, that's what I would do. I would run it back. But Belichick loves that organization. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel like we've, since Coughlin, gone through 1 million different people. We can't ever seem to get it right. We're barely competitive at times. Maybe we need the reset. And he wants to be here, loves it here, has reverence here. Whoever gets him is going to have him when he breaks the all-time wins record. That's a big deal for an organization to have somebody when he does that. That's going to happen under their watch. I don't know. So I agree with you that when this trade happens, because it sounds like it's going to happen at the end of the year, that an NFC team is the most likely destination because Kraft, I'm sure, doesn't want him coaching a team that he's going to face.
Yeah.
He's like, we get a new voice in here, we start over, we do all these new things, and we get good again. In his head, that's what's going to happen. Well, you don't want him standing in your way. You already got Andy Reid and Mahomes. You already got Burrow. You already got all these things over there that aren't going anywhere for a while. Do you really want him coaching another one of those teams like the Chargers, who's now becomes, because they have Herbert and him, a certainty to be in the playoffs every single year? You don't want that.
The other side of this, too, though, is, and I think it's just worth mentioning, is do we know that Belichick wouldn't just take a full GM/president role? Because I think that's worth asking.
I don't think we know that either.
Because I think it's worth asking.
But I think he wants to coach because I would think he wants to coach because he gets to break that record.
I would think so.
For a couple of years. He's 2 years away from breaking the all-time wins record. Why would he quit now? 2 average years he'll do that. I don't know why he would walk away from owning that record. Brady stuck around for a long time. One, because he's a lifer and he wanted to play and he was healthy. But he admitted he wanted to break all these records, and he did. He broke every single one of them. And the last one that stood was Breeze. And once Breeze retired, he was able to actually pass him. And I think that gave him the, I own everything now.
Yeah.
You're not going to catch me with Super Bowls, right? Or you're unlikely to catch me with Super Bowls. And you got to play 20-something years to catch me with all these passing records. So good luck with all of that. I'm going to be the greatest of all time. In Belichick's case, I don't know how he would walk away without breaking Don Shula's record. I think he's going to coach. That's what I think.
I think it's worth mentioning here, and I'll bring it up because Greeny was bringing up whoever was filling in for him and his producer Hembo, who always spits out all the stats on Get Up and everything. And I think it's worth bringing up here. Does Belichick pay attention to what Andy Reid's doing? Because Andy Reid's sitting at 275 right now, all-time wins.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it dawns on him that I could get that all-time wins, but Andy's going to pass me. Andy's only 65 and has Mahomes. He's guaranteed 10 wins every year he sticks around, right? So
then maybe he does want to go to a team with a quarterback so he can have a 5 to 10 year run with a really good quarterback and go stride for stride with them.
Or like I said, maybe he says, maybe I will just take a front office gig because I know Andy's going to take me over. I mean, I think that could go both ways. I'm with you.
My gut is he's going to coach till he breaks that record, and if someone else breaks it, someone else breaks it.
Yeah.
But that's what I think.
He wants to be the leader.
He's too close to it.
Yeah, it's true.
He's too close to it. Yeah. If he's 50 away and it's gone sideways, sideways. I'd be like, and he's in his 70s. I'd be like, I don't know.
Right.
But he's 16.
Yeah.
Like, as it stood entering the season, it was like Ovechkin. It was like one of those, like, it's going to happen next year. I just don't know when. Now, all of a sudden, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, it's more likely to happen over the next 2 seasons, and he will get there, especially if he has a good team with a good quarterback.
The other, like, thing here is, and I've seen this pushback from Commanders fans specifically over the last week or so since this is heated up, essentially, is what teams are willing to go that approach again? Like, this team already does that with Ron Rivera, where he does control the personnel and he is the head coach. Not as many teams are willing to do that. And I get it that it's Bill Belichick, but we're talking about Bill Belichick coming in, basically enacting an archaic model, being in control of the whole entire team, and a coach that rubs players the wrong way in the most player-friendly era in the NFL. I just don't know how many teams are going to be lining up for that.
I don't either. You know, like, this is hard.
Because if he comes in here, I know there's players that are go, nope, I'm not playing for that guy. And that's another issue you're going to have. I don't think there's a maybe. He alienates certain players sometimes and ships them off. Like, he's old school. That's what I'm getting at here. He's so old school that I think there's actually going to be shockwaves in your own organization whenever it happens, whoever decides to do it. And I just don't, I think it's too much of the same here. That's why I don't think it makes as much sense. But as you say, I don't know what this ownership group is thinking. And I think if they're looking at it on paper going, we can bring in the greatest head coach of all time, let's do it, not thinking about what that means down the line.
Harris did hire Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
After Brett Brown.
Right.
So he's gone this route of taking, you know, he's not an all-time coach, but he's a very established, big name, been around the block coach. You know, his third or fourth team. You have to remind me on the Devils. Did he hire like a legendary type name at any point in time early in his tenure? Did that ever happen? Did he bring someone in like that?
The only one I remember he did bring in was he brought in Adam Oates after his stint here, and everybody was like, not a good idea. That was the only one. In terms of big ones here, their latest ones, right now, it's Lindy Ruff. It's been a home run. He's been great.
He's also a longtime coach, was very good with the Sabres for a very long time, obviously played for a long time. He's a lot of wins. Established guy.
So before that, it was John Hines. He was 2015 to 2019. He went 150 and 159.
Okay, so he didn't hire Scotty Bowman.
No, but
he didn't do that.
But the stint before is the one I was talking about. Was he signed Adam Oates and Scott Stevens. Those were sorry, that was I remember this now. Pete DeBauer was the head coach. Mm-hmm. Then he got fired. Then they made Adam Oates and Scott Stevens co-head coaches. Oh yeah, that was a little bit of a mess. But
that's a mistake.
That was him going, there's two veterans there, just let them run the rest of the team out, because it was the second half of the season. Other than that, in terms of big names, Brent Sutter did coach them for 2 years. That was 07-09 though. It's not been these major names. Claude Julien, 06-07. Like, he's got actually some names, but
06-07, but he didn't own the team back then.
Yeah,
right? So this predates his ownership. So I'm trying to look at, like, you're trying to read tea leaves of what has he done as an owner.
Yeah.
And the hiring of Doc Rivers ought to tell you, but then, like, that makes sense. Like, not unlike when the Capitals hired Petey Lobbs, it was like, you've got this veteran team, you want to get a veteran coach, you're not going to fool around with it. So that made sense to me, but still, it is a big name, so he's done it before. I want to go back. The one thing that I know about him so far, at least from decision-making, outside of all the things he's done with the stadium and all that stuff that really is not, prevalent to this conversation, is when asked about the name, he said, I'm going to listen to the fans, right? I'm going to listen to them.
Sure.
What do you think the fan base would say about this, like, for real? Like, if you said to the fan base, we can acquire Bill Belichick, do you want him to be the head coach / president, general manager, because you're not getting a GM with him? Do you want him to come in here and be the successor to Rivera? I wonder what that answer would be.
I would say, I don't know if it's a resounding no, but I'd say an overall no.
You think so?
Yeah, I think.
See, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think a lot of people who are just casual fans would be like, Bill Belichick, yes.
The thing is, the people that are in the weeds and following it like we do, that mainline it, I think they'd look at that, what I was alluding to before. They look at the coach-centric, control everything, and they look at what's happened with Rivera here, and they're going, no thanks. They want a proper GM head coach combo. The other thing is, we talk about it all the time. Who are the most successful teams in terms of offenses? It's all young minds. It's all people off of the McVay coaching tree.
That's
They
right.
all coached here,
The Shanahan
funny enough.
tree, really.
Yeah,
It's
Shanahan. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But they all coached here. Like
It's Mike, really.
The graphic that haunts all of us is the one that has Mike, Kyle Shanahan, McVay, McDaniel was one of the coaches at one point too, LaFleur, and I'm missing another one. KOC is the other one. So I'm just saying,
were all here,
I think
all under that tree. Like, it's so funny that Shanahan's not in the Hall of Fame. Like, not only did he win in Denver, their first ever championships, right? Not only did he win there and had a great record there, but like, look at his tree.
Right.
It's a Hall of Fame tree that he's posted out there.
Right. Exactly. And so that's what I'm getting at here. I think the fan base keeps looking at this every freaking year and is like, another one of the young guys that walked out of our building that we didn't hire. Oh, and here we go. We're going to bring in another retread. Like, I think that's what the fan base feels like right now. Like I said, I don't think it's an overwhelming no. I think it's an overall no. I bet you it would be 60-40. No, yes.
Normally when I say this is my gut, it's more that I kind of know.
Right.
In this case, I can't give you that because I don't know their thinking. Do they want to come in here and make this massive splash, which is what that would be, or do they go a different direction? And again, I want to qualify this. The season's not over yet. They said the season would play out. I'm going to take them at their word, and the season will play out, and it's not over yet. And it doesn't mean that this team can't somehow turn it around. I think it's unlikely that they end up in the playoffs, but you don't know. I mean, they could be 5-6 as when we sit here and talk on Monday. I mean, very easily could be 5-6 when we sit here and talk on Monday. So we'll see what happens after that. That said, there's just so much smoke about this, about him going somewhere. And the logical place that keeps getting linked is Washington. And some people have kind of outwardly said this. And then when Orlovsky said the destination's already been determined, it's like, oh boy, like, wow. Where would that be?
Correct. Right, exactly.
And I heard someone say the Cowboys, and I went, Jerry Jones runs that team. Is he really going to turn it over?
Well,
I doubt it.
That's where I was kind of getting at with the whole, does he want to just be a GM question? Does he want to go somewhere and then just be the head coach too? Like, I think we don't know what he actually wants. It's the same thing that I said yesterday about here is if they've already broached the subject and said, hey, we know you can coach defense, but look at what EB and Howell are doing. Are you willing to come here and let them still do their thing on offense, and you make sure you just control everything else? Like, I just don't know what he might be conceding to go to another organization.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is, and this needs to be pointed out when you talk about this stuff, their drafts haven't been very good.
Correct. Yeah, they've been awful. As someone who posted all of his first-round picks over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
It's not good.
It's not only not good, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's bad. So, him as a GM / scout / talent evaluator, for as good a coach as he is, they haven't brought in top-tier talent across the board. Like, their drafts haven't gone particularly well.
That's why I think the fan base is kind of saying, like I said, overall no. Not an overwhelming no, but an overall no, because they're already seeing it here where if you don't hit on your draft picks, you're screwed. And what you're investing.
It's been a mixed bag. I don't think it's all been bad. Like, they did draft Sam Howell. Remember that? They did draft Brian Robinson. Like, they did. Like, Cosby might turn out to be a pretty good player. Not the position they thought, but he might be.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Like, they drafted Jahan. He's good. Like, it's a mixed bag here. It's not all bad. Like, it really isn't.
Sure, I'll hear you out on that. Mixed bag is the best use of it. But the other thing is, there's been nothing's ever been clear cut. Like, they draft Jamin Davis to play where he was supposed to play. He ends up not playing there, right? Like, same thing with Cosme. It took them 2 years to figure out.
Yeah.
All right, he's not a tackle anymore. Like, it has been a road for some of these guys.
Yeah.
Robinson was a hit because he's a stud running back. Like, you slide him in there.
As a mid-round pick with Gibson, I'd say that's gone pretty well. Right. Honestly, I don't think they use him enough. Like, I think the book is still out on Forbes. We don't really know.
Sure.
Like, who knows? Like, let's give him time. Be fair to him. Like, give him some time. He might be good. Jahan's a total hit. Like, that's been a hit. So it's not all bad. And then, like, some of these lower round picks, they totally hit on Curl.
Okay, but
they may hit on this guy Jones. They did hit on Forrest. Like, it's really, they've picked a lot of starters.
Sure, that's the draft picks. Then if we talk about free agents, they've been off the last 2 years.
Free agents,
their first year was good, where they got McKissick and Logan and
on deals, and that was good.
They had one. I thought they had maybe one more signing,
maybe
one of those as well. But that was good. And then it's been a mixed bag or worse from there on out.
Yes.
The Jackson deal was terrible.
Jackson deal and the Wentz deal were swings that were really bad.
The Wentz one I'll hear out,
actually.
The
Wentz one I think was desperate.
Yeah, I'll hear that one out.
Yeah, the Jackson one was a total miss. They acknowledge that. The Wentz one was a swing. Just a total swing. He's available. Let's just do it. Let's see if we get a quarter. We haven't had a quarterback.
They
Let's
traded
get
down
one.
and got the pick back.
They got the pick back.
That one you can explain to me, and I'm perfectly fine with.
There's
But
no dead cap this year. They lost a year with him, but they don't owe anything. It's not a situation where you're owed anything anymore. They got out of it. They moved on.
Right, but then look at last year when they were not active at all, and they needed O-line help, and then they signed 2 guys off the street that went terribly. Then they spent a little bit this year with Gates and Wiley. That's been a mixed bag at best with those guys. Gates is benched now, essentially. So I'm just saying, if you're going to be bad at signing free agents, you got to be better at drafting, and they just haven't been the best at drafting.
No,
what I'm getting at. So, and that's why I think, to bring it all the way back around, is I think that's why people are freaked out about Belichick, is we're going, we've seen this here already. We don't want the same model, and that's why it's not matching the, as I always point out, the Lynch-Shanahan model in San Fran.
But then at the same time, it is very hard to say we, fan base, don't want winningest coach of all time to coach our team. That's a hard sentence to actually utter.
But at the same time, in the short term, in these last 3 or 4 years, we've seen what he's done without Brady, and it doesn't mean that they didn't need each other the whole time. But at the same time, he hasn't been able to find his replacement or be better with the quarterback that he picked.
Yeah.
So that's why I think everybody's worried here is he doesn't have Brady coming in. Brady's not walking through that door. If you want to say Howell could be as good as him, that's a stretch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
He could be
very solid NFL starter.
It looks like they have an answer.
Right. But here's
how good, I don't know, but they have an answer here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. And maybe I'll hear you out on that, but I think people are just worried because also, let's just be honest here too, the majority of this fan base, especially people my age that are in their 30s, are going, how many of the old retreads have we signed here and pedaled out there with the 3 Super Bowl trophies and said, this one's going to be different? I think there's a little bit of trauma for everyone involved that's going, you're bringing Belichick in here? We kind of know how this works with this franchise. I know it's not Dan, but it's a little bit of, just flight or fight response a little bit.
Yeah, all along, what didn't match up to me was if they're going to hire a GM, well, is Belichick going to work with them? Probably not. So if that's the move, then that doesn't make sense. Are you, in your first major move, football side, going to trade a first-round pick for him? That never made sense to me.
That's right. I agree.
And also, does he want to come here? You don't know that.
Right,
you don't know that.
Good question.
BetOnline did put out odds. A team he'll be coaching next if it's not the Patriots. We're the favorite.
Okay.
3-1.
Yeah.
Chargers 4-1. Carolina 5-1. Obviously, I think that owner's willing to do just about anything.
I told you that when we went through the teams.
So that actually makes sense.
You have to put him down.
If he wants to go there, that guy will pay whatever it costs, give him all the control, and let him do it. They've got Tennessee at 6-1. No, they just have a new GM. Bears at 7-1. That's an interesting one.
I agree.
Age-old, traditional franchise.
I think that matters to him, too.
Yeah, I think that, that's an interesting one to me. They got Raiders 8-1. I don't think it'll work for Mark Davis. They got Tampa at 10-1, and I don't think that that's out of the realm. And I look at some of these other teams that are on there, and I go, someone may raise their hand that you're not thinking about because of the Craig Counsell thing.
Yep.
We have an opportunity to get somebody. We're just going to do it, even if we don't really need a new head coach.
Right.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Bram, watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Throwback Thursday, 1997, the last time Michigan won a football national championship. The Wolverines are going to be here on Saturday in College Park. Big noon, the big Fox noon kickoff show is going to be here with it. And they've got some news because Michigan has accepted today the suspension of Jim Harbaugh for this game and the next game against Ohio State. So that's going to happen. So that's happening this weekend in College Park. And then next week down at the Anthem, we've got major fights going on with the Professional Fighters League. And Chris Wade will be part of the card there. The Long Island Killer taking on Bubba Jenkins for the 3rd time as part of the card this weekend. And we welcome Chris Wade here to the show. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
All right, so 3rd fight, same guy. What do you got? What's gonna happen next week?
You know what? I mean, hey, it's hard to say. If you look at the first 2 fights, they were complete polar opposites. First one, I dominated. Second one, he controlled. So I've learned in the sport, every fight's a different fight. You watch any of these dudes who have multiple fights with each other, and it always seems to shake out a different way. So I'm just trying to do my thing, do what I'm good at, be my best self, and have a different fight than the last fight.
Tell me a little bit about the league, the Professional Fighters League, MMA. It's really been growing very quickly. It's gotten some major media deals. Like, what can you tell us about this? What is an alternative to UFC?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm one of the guys that started in the UFC, and I spent like 4 or 5 years with them, then jumped over to the PFL. And I could tell you, like, the PFL is very legit. A lot of people, you know, they're UFC, and they don't really understand the full game, but the PFL is making big moves every year. They just acquired Bellator, so they're fast becoming like that number 2 that's right behind the UFC. And I love to see it. I started with them, so I have like a rooting interest in seeing them continue to grow and expand.
Okay. I want to talk about your background a little bit because I was reading a story that was sent to me about you where, what was it, 10 years ago you were working for Budweiser, and you were doing what for them at the time?
Yeah, when I first started out fighting, coming out of college, I was working for Claire Rose, which is the main rep for Budweiser. It's essentially Budweiser out here on the island. And I worked my way up a little bit, but I was basically like a warehouse, a loader and a consolidator for the trucks that went out every day. So I was like a forklift guy. I was lifting things. I was learning how to make fancy moves on beer with a forklift. It was a pretty cool experience, but it was definitely rough on the body with the training because it was physical.
So you were training what, like at night, or like what was your schedule like when you were doing this?
Living a wild life trying to make this happen. I was doing whatever they were putting me on. So it started out regular work hours. I was working like 7:30 to 3:30, and then when I got promoted to the warehouse, those guys start when the trucks come back in. So I was working 3 to 11s, and then I got another promotion, but it was midnights. So I was working 11:30 at night to like 7:30 in the morning, sleeping until like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then waking up and going to the gym and starting my training at that time. So it was weird. That time of my life was very strange. Never felt right waking up. I always felt like very anxious getting up and trying to get into a workout. But, you know, it was worth it. It was worth the grind.
So it did what? The schedule, what pushed you back to, I need to focus on fighting? Like, at what point did you just kind of break and go, I've got to get back to what I really want to do?
Well, what I was doing was making sure that it was going to work out. So I was still keeping my full-time job because I was only like 3 or 4-0 professionally, and I hadn't been signed to like a big organization like the PFL as of yet. So once I got to like 5 or 6-0, I knew like, oh, I'm probably gonna get there, and I need to invest more time in this. Where I was at with them, they knew I fought, and they didn't really want me to get further promoted because they felt like I was kind of focused on something else, which they weren't wrong. But that's when I was like, all right, I'm kind of stuck where I'm at. I don't like it. So I'm just going to go full time with the fighting.
And how hard, like if you're not signed to one of these big groups, how hard is it to make that decision to do that? I mean, you must have been financially, it must have been a struggle there for a while before you really kind of landed with one of these groups.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. When I took that, the guys that owned the gym, they really they tried to do whatever they could to help me out. So I was hustling in the gym, basically working in the gym. I was selling memberships. I was cleaning the gym. I was doing anything I could to like get by, doing lessons, small groups, wrestling privates, whatever I could just to make ends meet to try to pursue the goal, the dream.
That's wild. So at what point did you realize after you made the shift, you're just going to focus on this full time, that you're like, I got a real shot at this to be a champion?
Well, it happened pretty quick. Like, I just kind of kept winning and, things kept going right. I got to like 7-1 in only like 2 years, first 2 years fighting or something like that. And I got picked up on a short notice opportunity with the UFC, like right away, like 2 years into my training. So I didn't have to like struggle that long to make it. And once I got in the UFC, my first fight, I wound up like choking the guy unconscious in like 50 seconds. So kind of like everything started off with a bang, and it just felt like I was in the right place, you know?
So you're winning, you get a chance at the UFC, you go there. Do you know if you're going to succeed there? Are you confident? Are you nervous? Like, what are you thinking about when you finally get a shot at that level?
I mean, yeah, like you're definitely fighting those kind of like negative thoughts that come across the mind. Like, can I handle this? Am I ready for this? But I've been competing my whole life. I've been wrestling my whole life. So I'm used to that one-on-one type of roll the dice where you're not on a team. And I just had confidence in myself. You know, I wasn't there yet with my striking, and I knew that. I was a little bit behind. I had the wrestling, I had the grappling, the submission stuff came pretty natural to me, but I knew I was behind in the striking. So if you watch a lot of my early UFC fights, I'm going like right in for takedowns. They're heavy grappling based fights because I didn't have anything else at the time really. I hadn't developed fully as a fighter.
Oh, all right. So when did you start this? When you were a kid? Like you said, you wrestled. You must have wrestled in high school. Like what else were you taking part in when you were young?
I've been wrestling since I was in like the 3rd grade and at a pretty high level. So, you know, high school wrestling was very high level for us where we were at. And I pursued that into college. So I was a college All-American a few times. So I definitely came out of wrestling like looking to see like what can I still do competitively that lets me be in this type of world. And MMA was just like that, kind of like a clear choice.
It's interesting. Like if you were that kind of accomplished, that young, why do you think it took so long for them to kind of find you and give you these opportunities on these platforms?
I mean, there's just a process that it's a rite of passage that doesn't matter who you are. In the beginning of the sport, you could jump right into a big promotion, like in the late 90s. But by the time I had come of age to do it, you know, you had to get some pro experience under your belt before they would consider signing anyone. It's very rare that they'll take like a national champion before they see him have like 3 or 4 pro fights, and then they'll be like, all right, let's sign this guy.
Yeah. I'm nervous asking this. Your nickname's the Long Island Killer. Who gave you that? How'd you get that one?
Oh man, yeah. I like talking about this one. So I'm not a nickname guy. I don't do it. I'm just me. I'm Chris Wade, you know. But the PFL, one of the guys that I actually trained with him while he was in the UFC. This guy Yves Edwards. He wound up giving me the nickname, and he was trying to like make it stick, and it kind of obviously stuck a little bit. But I never gave myself that name or was. You won't see me post it or write about it. It's not really like my thing.
All right. You mentioned you're on Long Island, so you're a big New York fan. Giants or Jets? Which one are you?
I'm a big sports fan, like die hard. I am a suffering Giant fan right now. It's absolutely brutal. I had my family and I, we are big into the Giants. We're big into the Mets, and we've just been taking absolute beating. Like from one season to the next, we're just getting trounced. So it's been a rough 2023. I was hoping for like us to vie for the playoffs, and they just went out and laid an egg immediately. It was awful.
Okay. Well, obviously you know they're here this weekend. Are you coming to the game?
I mean, I don't get in till Monday, but honestly, I'm at a point with them where I wouldn't spend $1 of my own money. They're lucky I turn cable on and check out one quarter because they're not even competitive, you know?
Well, I think maybe you could probably relate to this a little bit. I mean, this quarterback who's playing for him now, who apparently lives at home, is undrafted free agent. I'm sure you can relate to him a little bit. This is a tough task they're asking him to do, go out there and play the Cowboys and the Commanders back-to-back weeks.
Oh, DeVito? It's impossible. Yeah. He's a young kid, and he got no reps with the team like all season. And now they're asking him to play behind a. You may as well put me on the O line. It's like that bad. So I mean, I don't know. I feel bad for the guy. I watch him every play. I watch Daniel run for his life. Yeah. Tyrod got hurt immediately behind that line. It's just like that line literally gets guys hurt.
Yeah.
It could be, when you look back at what derailed Jones' career, which is a shame.
Yeah.
It really is.
All right, so on him, I'll let you go on this. On him, do you believe in Daniel Jones, like long-term, as the quarterback of the Giants?
You know what? I do, but I just don't see the window where they patch this O-line up to the extent that he could actually perform. He runs too much. Like, you saw him, what was it, the Zach quote where he was seeing ghosts?
Yeah.
And, that's what I saw in him. Even like the Cowboy game, he's throwing the ball, he's throwing picks because he's so scared. He gets like a second and a half back there, and then it's over. So I think they're going to move on from him after this season. We're going to pick so high that I think they're going to take a quarterback, and it's going to be one of those things where it just didn't work out.
Yeah. Chris, it was great talking to you. The 2023 PFL World Championship, it's next week. It's here at the Anthem down on the Wharf, Friday, November 24th. Tickets are still on sale through Ticketmaster, or you could head to PFLMMA.com. Prelims start at 5 p.m. Eastern with the pay-per-view starting at 8 o'clock on ESPN+. Chris Wade, the Long Island Killer, will be part of the card against Bubba Jenkins. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Have a good one.
All right. One other quick story before we get to a break, because I haven't had a lot of time to talk about this. I was going to spend a little bit more time on this. But did you see that the Virginia Attorney General is getting involved with trying to overturn what is essentially JMU being blocked from going to a bowl game? They're ranked.
Yep.
They're playing an entirely FBS schedule now because they moved up last year. They're ranked. They're undefeated. But the rule was when they moved up was last year and this year they would be ineligible for a bowl game. But they're a top 20 team who can't play in a bowl game, which is ridiculous. And now the AG is threatening to sue the NCAA to change the rule to allow them to play in a bowl game. And I think he's right. He's right.
No one's going to want to hear me say this, but rules are rules. You knew what you were getting into. And here's the other thing. Have you heard what the asterisk is?
You just pulled an airplane line. You knew what you were getting into.
You did.
You signed on the dotted line. I say let them crash.
Damn, that was good. Here's the thing, though. You already heard the asterisk, right? If they don't have enough bowl-eligible teams, they will be invited. Everyone's done the math and said that's actually like a legitimate thing that's going to happen. Not to mention, you're making enough noise now already.
Yeah.
Somebody's inviting them to a bowl game. I mean, you're going to get to a bowl game. Guys, are you really thinking you can get to the college football playoff? Because let's stop there. Like,
all right, to my I do the military bowl every year. I do the sidelines there.
Right.
To my man Josh Barr.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was saying. Like,
do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think they have. I think they have a relationship situation with the conferences of they
do,
have
but
to pick, but.
Things are going to get dicey.
Them getting the bowl game regionally, you want to fill up the stadium?
Yep.
Invite them 100%. To play anybody in a bowl game. Invite them.
I'm going to guess all the bowl games on the East Coast are going to be gunning to get them because they know.
You're trying to fill up a stadium. It's hard to do on the bowl games. It is.
Trying to fill up a stadium, and you're trying to actually just play out stories when it comes to bowl games, too. Like, most of them we don't pay attention to because it's just not our teams involved. That's one where everyone's going to go, oh, JMU's playing that game? I'm watching that one.
I'd sign them up now. I would go to it. They already have 10 wins. They're undefeated. They're ranked. Like, whoever they play is probably going to be an underdog to them.
Maybe.
Like, bring them in. Start the hype now. We're giving JMU their bowl appearance.
If they don't do the military bowl, I gotta think a good one would be that the Yankee Stadium one. It used to be the Pinstripe Bowl. I don't know if it still is the Pinstripe Bowl.
It probably
Bowl,
has
that's
a sponsor
another
now.
one.
It didn't have a sponsor for a while. It's just called the Pinstripe Bowl. It probably has one now.
But that's one where I'd also circle like East Coast, big city, easy to get people to and from. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's going to be one of those.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, because the Navy Stadium where the military bowl is played. It's an hour and a half away.
Yeah. No, totally. No, that's the
You'll
perfect
sell their
one.
tickets.
Yeah, that's the perfect one.
It's their first one.
Yeah. Because they had UVA a couple years back too. I think
They did.
That played in that one too.
UVA a couple years ago.
UNC.
They had Duke play a couple years ago. UNC. Actually, I have a picture with Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, yeah.
I have a picture with Sam Howell, who was named the MVP. And when they drafted him, I tweeted out the picture of me interviewing Sam Howell as the MVP of the Military Bowl that day. Like, who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? All right. Well, I wish them luck, and I do appreciate that the AG got involved with that and was like, "We're going to come after you if you don't let us in."
It's funny too. They're undefeated in basketball too. So far,
They just beat Michigan State.
Yeah, right. So
sports school.
They're making the same. I told you, they're the best sports school in Virginia right now
by a lot.
Yeah,
actually, it's not close.
Yeah, them and ODU.
Yeah, not close. I will take a quick break. I want to play this bite from. Oh, wait a minute. I want to get into the RSNs, but I also want to play this bite from Stephen A. Smith on why Josh Allen doesn't get crushed nationally, but Dak does. It's amazing. Brave Watch the Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. There's some symmetry with Throwback Thursday. 1997 I chose this week because that is the last time that Michigan won a national championship in football. They have an opportunity for it this year at 10-0. They're playing Maryland here in College Park this week, and then they'll have the game against Ohio State next week. And it has already come out today that Jim Harbaugh will not coach in either one of those games. The school and the coach have accepted the 3-game suspension, one of them which was already served for the sign stealing controversy that occurred with this former guy, Connor Stallions. They were fighting this tooth and nail. They were supposed to go in front of a courtroom tomorrow to ask for a temporary restraining order. And today they've backed off and they're not going to do it. So he's accepting this. And by doing so, the Big Ten now closes its investigation officially. The NCAA will keep going, but I'm going to go that gets swept under the rug and it's over because it is a major punishment.
Right.
It is.
Yeah,
to lose him
for sure.
for 3 games, and especially the one that matters, it's a big deal.
No, I agree with it.
And when Keim comes on Friday, tomorrow, I am going to ask him how pissed he is that if they win, he's a huge Ohio State person, and Harbaugh's not there, he knows an asterisk gets put on it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
He already told me, like last week, I said, what do you think about this? And he goes, I hope he's coaching. He's like, I went with him to the Washington-Utah game, and he goes, I really hope he's coaching because I already know what's going to happen if we beat him and he's not there. They're going to say it doesn't count or like, yeah. Oh, man. Meantime, this is going to, for those of you who kind of only really remember college football as in the playoff era, this is going to sound crazy how they won their national championship because I don't know if you remember this.
I don't. Because, I mean, I remember it used to be 2. You have to remind folks out there that they would hand out the championship.
This is one of them.
Oh, God. Okay.
This is one of them. And I forgot about, I should have known this when I picked this date. I was in Nebraska for 2 years. My first on-air job was in a small station in central Nebraska that actually was on the Tom Osborne Expressway in Hastings, Nebraska. And I covered a national championship team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, which ended up being the last year that Tom Osborne was the coach there. Mm-hmm. And there was this crazy game that occurred in the middle of the season that only people out there are going to remember, but they played unranked Missouri on the road. And there was a ball that was at the end of a game where they were losing that was kicked up into the air as it was falling to the turf, like accidentally kicked up into the air, and a Huskers receiver dove and caught it, and they ended up winning this game, and it salvaged the season. But because of that, they went from being ranked number 1 at the time to number 3. The pollsters moved them down.
Okay.
They moved up Michigan to number 1. But back then, there was no playoff. So Michigan went to the Rose Bowl and played Washington State and won. And Nebraska went to the Orange Bowl and played Tennessee and won. But the AP writers, because they were number 1, labeled them, Michigan, the national champion. And then because Nebraska won the Orange Bowl, was undefeated, was given also a national championship. So they split it.
Got it.
So
that's
there
right.
were 2 national champions that year. But of course, it counts. They get it.
Of course.
And that's the way it was back then.
That's the way it was. Yeah.
They didn't play each other. They
That's right.
should have played each other. They
Right.
didn't play each other. So that's the way it was.
And because of things like that is how we got to now.
How we got to now. Charles Woodson was the Heisman Trophy winner that year.
That's right.
He's also been a vehement Big Blue defender of Michigan, if you've noticed. And I can't wait to see him on Saturday in College Park when he's railing on what's going on here.
Right.
But them accepting this, to me, is a full-on admission that you got us. I never could square why did every single AD in that conference go so hard at them? Because everybody says everybody's doing it, but it must have been more elaborate. It must have been worse, and we don't know. And I think some of this may be, I really feel like now that they're not going in front of a courtroom, it's that the Big Ten's like, guys, you do not want this revealed in the public view. You really don't.
The only other thing I could think of, too, though, is through their investigation, somehow they figured out Harbaugh was way more in contact with the team, or they found the evidence that he was in contact. Because let's be honest here, he was in contact with the team. But
come on.
My guess here is they could say, all right, guys, you really want to push back that hard? We have screenshots of Harbaugh texting the coaches during that week. And then we can suspend him for a year off of that alone because he didn't listen to us. Like, I'm guessing... I think this still all boils down to what I said at the end of last hour in terms of, I think they're saying, we have X, Y, and Z. You have A, B, and C. Take the suspension so neither of us are dragging the other one out even longer than this needs to be. Let's just put the kibosh on it because then
whatever you were doing, cut it out.
Correct. And then they're going to say, and then in 2 months when we're playing the college football playoffs and into the championship, nobody's talking about this, guys. Let's get this done right now. Also, let's be honest here too. Look at the news cycles. It's Thanksgiving next week. We're about to head into holiday time. They're going, let's get this over with right now.
It will be a big deal assuming they beat Maryland and assuming Ohio State's undefeated too. It's going to be a big deal next week.
Yes. Yeah,
for sure.
For sure. Yeah, no, I agree.
It's the story of that game.
Right.
If Michigan wins, it's an all-time laugher at Ohio State. If they lose, he's a martyr.
That's right. Correct. And
they blame that for being the case.
Yes.
And then they yell at the Big Ten for ruining a chance of a national championship team in their own conference.
They were doing that crap week one, whoever soft opponent they were playing, and all the players were throwing up what were they throwing up, fours or something? I don't remember
and then,
what it was, but it was such cringe behavior.
Crazy interim head coach, assistant coach who did that cursing rant, crying on TV after they beat Penn State.
Utterly ridiculous.
They're going to beat Maryland by a lot.
So this is one thing I wanted to say to you.
No way. Oh, you're going to turn on the Terps? No, come on, man.
I'm not going to turn on the Terps, but I wish I could hear a little more resistance out of College Park, because if you're hearing some of the quotes, like I saw one yesterday where I don't know if it was a coach or a player, they were going, he deserves to be on the field for that victory on Saturday.
Because it's their 1,000th.
Okay.
That's the thing, too. Their record is 999 and whatever.
Sure.
And so this is win number 1,000 in the history of the Michigan football program.
Okay, I hear all of that out, but when have you ever heard a top program like that just saying he deserves to be on the field for the win on Saturday, assuming that they're going to come in and win? I'm just saying.
You're not?
They're very, I didn't say that, but I wish I would hear a little bit of resistance out there from Yield College Park of, they're already assuming they're going to beat us. That's nice. Like, maybe drum up the wagons a little bit here for them coming to town.
Loxley's talked about a lot of stuff this year.
Yes.
We're turning the corner. We can compete with teams like this. You're right. Say so. You're assuming you're going to win without your head coach. Is that right?
Right. Like, you're assuming you're going to win with or without him? Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Like, I'm just saying, I would like to hear a little bit of resistance.
Well, if anybody covered Maryland, someone would ask them, but because they don't anymore.
Right. Like, that's what all I'm saying is I would have loved Locks to just come out with a quote of, we still have to play the game here Saturday. We don't care who's coaching, but to assume you're going to come in here and beat us, that's a little much for me. Like, all I'm saying is don't lay down. So, I know they're going to lose, but I don't think I've ever heard an opponent kind of talk about assuming that they're going to win like this before.
Yeah.
Because even a guy like Saban is that part of like that old school crowd. Like, I used to have a high schoal coach that was just like this, where and Gibbs was like this, where it didn't matter who they played.
Don't ever do that.
Yes.
Don't ever do that. I have this old story I tell when they played the 49ers one year when they were like winless and they were really bad. And everyone was like talking to him like they were assuming they were going to win, and he freaked out on everybody.
My high school head coach, Al Thomas, legend in Moco. He would go when a reporter would ask him questions about the other team. He goes, "I don't think my team could beat Little Sisters of the Poor this week." Like, it didn't matter who we were playing. And I'm just saying, this is it's weird to hear it coming from Michigan, because I think they're smarter than that. Like, I know they're a top school when it comes to football, but to just kind of come out and say he deserves to be on the field after the win. Guys, you still got to come here and play. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
So let's hear Locks and Talia say something.
Yes.
Oh, really? Is that right?
Yes. Let's drum it up a little bit. You guys don't do it otherwise. Someone's putting it on a platter for you to freak out on them because you're assuming they're going to win. Just going to lay down and take that? I would hope you don't. So,
one other college football story. Texas A&M's looking for a new coach. Mm-hmm. Did you see the reports of who they tried to back channel reach out to?
Remind me. I saw this, and then I forgot who it is.
It's our favorite new NFL coach.
Yeah, Dan Campbell. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Ain't no way that's gonna happen. Stop it.
Well, they paid Jimbo $100 million. What do you think they're willing to pay him? I think he played there. I think that's part of it too.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he did. He's not gonna do that.
Well, I don't know, man. Like, if someone came to him and said $100 million guaranteed, what, he's going to say no?
I mean, I guess. He's also probably already top 5 Lions coach all time. So, I mean.
Top 5. Whoever was coaching Bobby Lane. I couldn't even name another Lions head coach who would be.
Mariucci.
How about top 5 Lions personality ever?
Maybe.
How about most important figure to come into that organization since I can remember, outside of Barry Sanders or Calvin Johnson?
That's Stafford.
Matt Stafford. Yeah. They didn't win nothing with him.
No, I'm just saying.
Old Dan Campbell biting the kneecaps.
Here's the thing, though, and we talk about this all the time.
I was like, that guy's going to be good. I never thought this. Like 2 years later, he's going to be offered $100 million.
Preseason favorite to win the division,
I know,
the Lions. No way. Here's the thing with this,
and
though.
And it's following through is the craziest part of it.
Here's the thing with that, though, and I think we've talked about this, at times. Do you really want to go into college and go to that grind where you're constantly recruiting players and keeping them happy? And then even when you do recruit them and get them on your team, then you got to worry about them going into the transfer portal now. Like, I don't know. I'd almost argue coaching in the NFL is easier in a different way than going to college at this point.
It's different.
I think it's a different kind of grind. It's a different kind of grind. Does he want to do that? I don't think he does because he's been in the NFL coaching circles far too long.
Can he recruit? That's really the question.
Right.
Can he recruit? If he can recruit, then he'll be fine.
You don't sign here, I'm going to bite your kneecaps off.
Listen, we laugh at him all he wants. He turned the Lions into like winners. It's crazy. They're really crazy. All right. There's one other big story I got to get to. I got to talk about this because it's making the circles now. Carissa Thompson apparently went on a podcast.
She went on Barstool, yep.
Yeah, and actually admitted that in the past, when she was on the sidelines doing reports, that there were a couple of occasions where, like at halftime, the coaches are supposed to come out and give you a couple of tidbits. They talk to you. Well, every once in a while, they don't. Shocker, they don't sometimes. Like, these are the parts we don't say on the air that they don't, they blew us off. This happens all the time. And it's not, honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but it happens. Well, she has to do a report anyway.
Yeah.
But apparently, instead of being honest about it in these a couple of occasions where she did get blown off, she told those guys that she made up reports.
Yeah. I saw the video of it and the quotes from her. And while she is, what I think she's doing is not the malpractice everybody is talking about it, she should have never said it out loud.
Absolutely not.
Because she even said,
you're putting a bad name on everybody
exactly.
when you say something like that.
Correct.
I would never do that.
Right.
Well, I will never attribute something to a coach that they didn't tell me.
Right.
Ever.
And she kind of prefaced it by going, well, when they're terrible on third downs, I would just say, oh, yeah, we need to stop them more on third down. What head coach wouldn't want to do that? And while you're right, don't say it like that. Like, there's no reason for you to go that route.
Listen, she's going to be part of 1 minute of a broadcast because they typically get this. You tell the producer, they didn't come out and talk to me. They blew me off. Do you want to blow the report off? And if you don't, do you want me to say that I got blown off? Because you can say that too.
Right.
Or you could just say, coming into the game, this is what we thought. This is what's happened so far. I know this was a priority for them before the game.
Yeah.
You don't attribute anything. So, while I don't think this is the biggest deal on earth, I think it's a really terrible thing to admit.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm saying. She should have never said it out loud.
As someone who tries to uphold the ethics of the whole thing, you never, ever, ever do that. Coaches, there are rules. Coaches say things to me like, I get to talk to Rivera on Fridays alone for the purpose of the broadcast. I talk about some of the stuff here, but most of the time it's for the purpose of the broadcast. Not everything he tells me ends up on the broadcast because he has to trust that if he tells me something, it says, I'm just telling you this for context, but it's not for the broadcast, that he's going to trust that I won't actually say it. I don't. It's a rule. If he says this is just for your knowledge so you can contextualize better, then I do that. I would never, ever attribute something that I think he might say if he didn't say it to me.
You're right.
So it's bad. I mean, it really is. Is it the worst thing on earth? No. And the things that she said, as she put it, were these are the things they probably would say. She's probably right. but you can't do that. And I can't believe she actually admitted it.
I can't believe she admitted it, too, because she does a really successful podcast. I forget what the name of it is. It's with her and Aaron Andrews. Dude, you just put your co-host out.
She has to address it, too.
Yeah. Like, you just put your co-host out of that, too. That's because that's what she does. That's how she has made her career. She's always been a sideline reporter, Aaron Andrews has. Yeah. So now, all of a sudden, you're disparaging not only everybody, you're disparaging someone that you work with often.
I got to tell you, too, like, listen, it is very hard to be a woman in sports media. Very hard, right? It's harder because of the type of reactions that they get. And some of it is, like, baseline ridiculous, and some of it is very sexist, and some of it also goes to, how could you know you definitely never played type of stuff, you know? And I always feel for them because they work mainly just as hard as anybody else. And I think that Chris has great credibility and has all sorts of contacts. And, you know, she shouldn't be questioned that way. She has to live with something like that. But when you say something like this, it only lends credence to some of those dismissive things that are said. And it's bad for everybody in the industry when you say something like this. Here's Laura Oakman, who does a great job for, I think, CBS. I'm pretty sure CBS or Fox. I don't remember. She's been doing it forever, right? And she tweeted this. The privilege of a sideline role is being the one person in the entire world who has the opportunity to ask coaches what's happening in that moment. I can't express the amount of time it takes to build that trust. Devastated with the text that I'm getting asking if this is okay. No, it's not, ever.
Yep.
It's not. It's not okay. It's never okay. You can't attribute something that you think they might have said for the sake of filling the 30 seconds you need to fill. Tell the producer they blew me off.
Yep.
Right. If you want me to do a report, it will not, don't lead into what did they say to you. Say something else, and I'll fill the time, but I'm not going to say something they didn't say. I can't believe she admitted that.
Yeah, that's what I think it all starts. The other thing you could also do,
she better apologize. I mean, it's really bad.
She has to. Yeah, she absolutely has to. The other part of that, too, is, you know, if a coach blows you off, you can always grab an assistant real quick, too, for 5 seconds and say, hey, what did coach address at halftime? Like, that's another option there. You're on the sideline. You're on the literal sideline with plenty of personnel. And you could even do I'm not going to blow your spot up. You can just say, hey, I'm just going to use the Commanders. Ron Rivera didn't come out, but I talked to one of the assistant coaches. This is what they addressed at halftime.
Or you just say, you know, we didn't get an opportunity to speak with the coach, but before the game, you know, when we talked to them, these were their priorities, and this is probably what they're going to be thinking about in the second half.
Right.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's a dicey one. I
really bad.
I'd be interested to hear what your friend Sarah Walsh would have to say about that too.
I agree with you.
Same thing with Sarah too.
Right. She's just like Laura did. Sarah's probably getting all sorts of messages like, "Do you do that?"
Right. Exactly.
And I know Sarah. She would never do something like that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to do something like that. She's like best friends with her too. Oh boy.
That's what I'm saying. Like Chris is friends with all of them. So yeah.
Bad news bears, guys. Let's see. I got to do this RSN story with Ted. But I also want to do the Dak thing. All right, I'll save the Dak thing for later. Let's do the stuff that Ted. What's going on over there in Wizard Land?
Oh boy.
Yeah, we'll do that next. Bram Washington Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. This is either the greatest or the worst mashup you've ever heard in your life. It's from Jock Jams, 1997.
Everyone had this CD though.
Of course.
It's one of those CDs where I think every single person had a copy.
It really shifts around. It's amazing. Who did this? Steve Aoki? Is this like what is this?
Well, the official artist is ESPN Jock Jams.
Yeah.
So there is no actual artist. You know what it is? It's the original TikTok.
Yeah.
It's something new every 3 seconds.
It's incredible. It is ahead of its time. 1997 is when it came out, Throwback Thursday, to commemorate the last time Michigan football won a national championship. They got a shot at it this year. They're playing Maryland this weekend in College Park, 2 wins away from heading to a Big Ten championship game, but they'll have to do it without their coach, Jim Harbaugh, as the news today is that the school and the coach have accepted the 3-game suspension, so he won't coach this weekend, and he won't coach against Ohio State next week.
That Jock Jams jam peaked at number 31 on the Billboard chart in 1997. So there you go.
Number 31?
Yeah, October of 1997. So I'm sure that was blasting all over the college football games at the time.
That's right.
Were you covering Nebraska in 97? Is that what that was? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you heard that a few times.
That was fun covering a national championship college football team.
Yeah.
It was fun.
That was probably was that like the last iteration of Nebraska that was good too? They were
pretty good for a few years after. Their
played
big
like
mistake,
Miami, right? Big early 2000s, I want to say.
They replaced when Tom Osborne retired, which came as a surprise. But when he retired, they replaced him with his longtime assistant Frank Solich. The team was fine, and they pulled a Phrygian on him.
Oh no!
And it's never been the same since.
Oh.
Then they went to the Big Ten, and that screwed it up too.
That's right. Okay, yeah, there you go.
Because all of a sudden, every year they played Colorado, and they were in that, and Oklahoma and Texas. Those were their big games. Those were their big rivals. And then all of a sudden they were playing Iowa, and nobody cared.
Right.
They ran into that. All right, let me get to this piece that came out in the Washington Post because I haven't gotten around to it yet, and I want to because it's right up my alley with future of media, which is the Washington Post did a detailed preview of what's to come with the Monumental Sports Network. They met with Zach Leonsis in what is the building blocks of the new studio that they're building. I don't remember exactly where it is. Obviously, they've rolled out their new everything, except that they don't have their studio yet. They're building it out.
Yep.
The beginning of the story talks about how they are putting a pretty heavy investment in some modern technology in a very large studio space, so that you're gonna, they're gonna blow this thing out. Should look good.
Yep.
When they get around to doing it, it should look really good. And then the Post, though, starts asking questions like, why are you doing this in a new media structure? And Ben Strauss writes this: the media business is transforming, and with its sports business, thanks to cord cutting and the erosion of the cable bundle, ESPN is looking for investors to bolster its business. Diamond Sports Group, which owns the local rights for dozens of teams, is saddled with crippling debt. And AT&T and Warner Brothers Discovery are tripping over themselves to get out of the regional sports network business. Charging into the unsettled landscape is the Leonsis family and Monumental, spending hundreds of millions to buy regional sports network NBC Sports Washington, rebranded as Monumental Sports, and invest in a technological and production makeover, said Zach Leonsis. A lot of people write about the demise of the RSN industry because the traditional model is under pressure, but we don't think the value of our rights is going down. We think the value of our rights is increasing, which is why we're making all of this investment. The rights are increasing on a national level in streaming spaces, potentially still TNT, ESPN. I think we all recognize that like Amazon and Apple and places like that are probably going to buy up all of the major streaming rights for the major packages. But it doesn't change the fact that the audiences regionally are fractured and dwindling.
Yep. Right.
So I respectfully disagree. Mm-hmm. I understand, in reading this piece, I understand why they're doing this. They're basically saying these models aren't working for them, but we own the properties themselves, and therefore we're in a better position to negotiate on behalf of ourselves with wherever this ends up going. And because we have been forward, and I'll give them credit for this, being forward with streaming technologies initially, they're more in line with the modern consumption of media, and therefore the bet that they're making, I have a hard time buying it's going to work out the way they're envisioning it. They got a better shot at it than some other organizations. So I'll give them that. But it is quite the bet to do what they're doing and assume that they're going to come out on the other side. When he says rights fees are going up, not on the local levels, which is why, because the advertising dollars are split, which is why the RSNs are all going bankrupt.
Right, exactly. Can I just also, I know he mentions them, but I think the future, and this is why I don't really quite understand why they're launching their own network. Look at what Phoenix has done.
Yeah, they went back to traditional broadcast TV.
And not only that, over-the-air TV. So it's accessible to everybody. And that's what a well-known basketball team with the Suns, like you and I talk about it, that's a basketball town. They come out for those games. Zach and Ted are talking about the Wizards, who are not popular, don't have a superstar to tout anything, and the Capitals, who are clinging on to an open window here. Now, granted, that might be the most valuable thing they have in the summer is the Mystics, but I'm just saying, I don't know if this was the two teams to try this out with. They're not like these stalwart teams. They're niche teams, honestly, in this area.
The road is paved for a baseball team to be on their network.
Of course.
And probably owned. Sure. So will the Learners ever sell it to Ted Leonsis? We'll see.
Right.
I mean, the infrastructure is there for that, and they need all this. But again, so here's the model that went wrong. Teams are arriving at this moment for different reasons. The San Diego Padres had their TV contract canceled by Diamond last year, forcing MLB to step in and distribute their games and cover much of their rights fees. Monumental is more proactive. When it acquired NBC Sports Washington last year, it bought the existing TV contracts that came with it. Capitals and the Wizards signed media right extensions in 2016. They were worth a combined nearly $1 billion over 15 years, according to a person with knowledge of the deals. Under the previous arrangement, NBC Sports Washington would have been on the hook for those guaranteed payments to the teams while receiving revenue in the form of carriage fees and advertising. The money that cable companies pay to air the network. Under the new model, Monumental will negotiate directly with the cable companies themselves, hoping to secure higher fees as cable TV's universe shrinks and live sports helps keep the cable companies afloat. And therein lies another bet here. Will cable TV be something in 10 years?
Right. It's a great question.
So you're negotiating out your fees. At the same time, they have launched a streaming service. We talked about this a few weeks ago when they announced it. I thought the price was a little high, personally, but like that, but they can prove me wrong by getting 1 million people to sign up for it. And then, you have a different conversation. When we do get to this point where cable becomes something of yesteryear and people really aren't using it any longer, and I think we're probably 5 to 10 years away from that, where people cord cut, because your generation, you guys don't have these packages anymore. No. It's older people, middle-aged people and older people like myself that are kind of stuck in this model of this is how we consume media. You don't. Will everyone else younger, will they pay what it costs to watch it via whatever device they watch it and pay the team directly? We'll see. And that's where we're going to find out, do the live sports rights have the same value locally and regionally? Because yes, the rights fees will go up for the packages of the premier teams, but will they go up for the regional teams? I bet you're going to see a chasm. There are probably going to be some places like Los Angeles with the Lakers, Dallas, well, football's kind of out of this. Baseball with certain teams, the Red Sox, the Yankees, that have big brands, that have massive fan bases that probably will survive if they, matriculate in the right directions. But do the Wizards and the Capitals, who don't have big brands outside of this area, do they carry the same rights fees? Do they get enough people wanting to buy their packages? I guess we'll find out. Yeah. And I don't know what the answer to that is, really. And they're making a big bet that it's going to work out that way, and they may be right. We'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of a slim of the slim, right?
I'm not rooting against them.
No, of course not.
I'm not.
No, of course not.
I want them to succeed. I want our teams to succeed. I don't want to see us fall into a situation where our rights fees are so marginalized that our teams aren't competitive, which is what I'm scared of what's happening.
Of course, but I mean, I think you would agree with me on here. The math says you're now asking a certain audience who likes one or both of those teams to sign up for this. And only a sliver of that audience will actually sign up for it because not that many people follow both teams. Like, to me, the math isn't mathing here. I just don't know how many people are going to sign up for this over using their normal cable, or if you're like me, you just watch it at a bar or wherever else when you actually want to go and watch a game. Like, I don't know if this is sustainable. That's on the surface.
Like what's happened to the other RSNs, and this is what they would run into too, and this is what they're going to try to get into, is the RSNs, once the gap happens where the advertising's not the same, the ratings aren't the same, they have to pay these rights fees, so they go back to the cable operators and they say, to carry us, you got to pay us this amount of money because that's what we need. Well, that's what Monumental is going to do to Comcast, Fios, whoever, whatever else you use to get, and it's going to be up to those carriers to go, we're either paying that or not paying that.
Right.
Then we'll find out. Mm-hmm. Now, it is their rights fees, right? So there's no middleman here. Like, they're the rights fees, but they need to get it out into the general public to make them worth what they're saying that they're worth. Therefore, they need the cable companies, but there's going to be a price for that.
Right.
And then what ends up happening is, do you get enough backlash from the viewing public who says, we can't not have this? We've seen these fights over and over. The NFL Network just had it with a number of them. Mm-hmm. And eventually people came around and they did it. Will there be enough people that will get mad enough if they can't access the Monumental Network that the carrier will buckle? That's the fight they're about to walk into.
Right.
And I don't know the answer to that because, as pointed out here, and part of this is the team's not very good, the Wizards' ratings are among the worst in the NBA in general.
Sure.
So you're asking a fan base that is not fully engaged to not only pay for it, but demand that they get to see it. You're walking down a pretty nasty tightrope here.
That's right.
And again, I want to be clear. I'm rooting for them. I don't want this to fail. I want them to be successful. I want our teams to be successful. But the model that they've picked, just knowing what I know institutionally about what we do, they're taking a big bet, and it's a swing that I'm going to wait and see how they get out of, because what they're talking about doing, and I think is detailed here very correctly, is a path of destruction.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because all the evidence is this model isn't working for anybody. They're all going bankrupt. Now, this group, and they're openly saying when they open these new studios, they're going to invest in tons of programming, which to me, as someone who works in this industry, great.
Sure.
That's opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's good for the sports fans, but I also know nobody's watching these things outside of the games just because I know that. I hate that that's the case, but it is the case. So they're going to invest a lot of money in programming that I hope people watch, and they may or may not, and it may not move the needle at all, and it's just going to be more money pumped into something to try to get people to pay for it. Are they going to? I'll be very interested to see how this plays out.
The other thing that I've said as well that concerns me is, let's take the Capitals, for example. They're on like 10 or 11 national games this year. So I already know the monumental thing next year is going to be, hey, by our network, you're going to see Ovechkin break the record if he's in reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens when Ovechkin is playing the Blackhawks on ESPN that night and your network actually doesn't have the game? This is where I'm running into it as well, where I've heard some fans go,
like the MLS, their whole package is on Apple.
That's
now.
right.
I don't think that's going to happen, but what if Amazon says, you will take the NBA because they can host all of them?
That's right.
We want all of them.
All of a sudden, then this is...
Then
you're
what?
then you're irrelevant, essentially. You're going to tell people
Correct.
to pay for everything, not the Wizards.
That's what I would be worried about if I'm them, that when Amazon comes in and says, we want the NBA package, and they go, we want the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that they select, like the MLS did, the 10 broadcast crews that do all the games. And now there is no regional network of it because the rights are only worth it to Amazon to own all of them.
Yeah.
Now you have a network and you don't even have your own games on it anymore.
Right.
That's going to be difficult. I did like that Zach said, because, I've been wondering how a regional sports network here doesn't cover the NFL team, which they don't really. They do JP's podcast, but that's it. That's the only thing they do now.
Yep.
And they don't even do pre and post game, like whatever. But that's their choice. He said that they are open to it with the new ownership group.
Okay.
So I was good to hear that
right,
one.
good.
He said they're open-minded is what they said. I'm glad to hear that because I don't know how you have a regional sports network and don't cover the NFL team.
It's a disservice.
Yes. There is one other little piece to all this that needs to be pointed out, and it wasn't a big part of this. This was really a story about what they're trying to build from a media perspective. But
this was mentioned. I mean, you have to mention it.
And this is what Ben Strauss writes. As far as how Monumental will cover its own teams, people familiar with the Wizards broadcast who spoke on the condition of anonymity to protect their jobs said higher-ups at the network have pushed for more team-friendly content. I want to start by saying that's not unusual, that like teams don't want really negative things out there,
Sure.
But there is a line, and I think we all know what it is. And this is what this one particular example was given. When longtime Wizards star John Wall returned to D.C. as a member of the Clippers last year, they said the broadcast was told not to air a package commemorating his time in D.C. that staffers had put together. In December, the broadcast was told that it spent too much time praising opponent Anthony Davis's 50-point effort in a Lakers win over the Wizards. And Leonsis asked about this, did say, our instruction to talent is to play the ball where it lies. Our fans are smart and they get it. We don't need gratuitous comments on either side of the ledger. It's a mistake.
Yep.
It just is.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that you don't need to gratuitously do anything that's negative about the team. And I think everybody understands that line, that you don't need to go out of your way to be overly critical. And this year with the Wizards, they're in a tricky spot because that team is really bad.
And they told you they would be bad.
They told you they would be bad, but I've been in a situation, I've been, calling games for a team that's lost for a long time. And so I get it and I understand it. This is different because they're kind of non-competitive by design a little bit.
Correct.
The team that I'm doing it with is not going into their seasons thinking they're non-competitive. So, it's a different kind of situation. Still, you are walking down a dangerous path. If you keep telling your talent, this is what happened with Kevin Brown. You keep telling your talent, you can't tell people what they see. Or to actually just praise Anthony Davis for scoring 50 points in a game is a little much because if you just said our fans are smart and they get it, well, then they ought to get that even though it happened against your team, that's an unusual occurrence by a superstar player, and it's okay to tout it. Like I cited a few weeks ago when we played the Eagles here, A.J. Brown made an utterly ridiculous touchdown catch, that one-handed catch in the game. It was just a crazy catch.
Yeah.
It was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Nobody from the Commanders said anything to me about it. Like, I'm not happy it happened, but like, to the point of our fans are smart, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to say? A.J. Brown caught a touchdown. Next play, no. A.J. Brown's been killing us this year. I think it's okay to tell your fans we're having a hard time covering him. And, oh, by the way, we're having a hard time covering him. But when he does things like that,
right,
you can't cover him.
That's right.
Like that makes him impossible if he's going to do things like that. And I think it's okay to say that's why he's one of the best receivers in the league. And
right,
what's wrong with that?
And I know you're going on the play-by-play thing. I think it's actually more jarring with the John stuff. Like,
he's a great player for your team that I would argue you could do something to really commemorate.
He was the heart and soul of your franchise for a decade.
I know.
I mean, and we all understood why you had to ship him out. I think everybody understood why you had to do what you did, but
it doesn't mean he's not part of the history of the team and a
right,
beloved part of the history.
Yeah,
he did so much in the community too. That's the other part where I was like, it's a good example to use. Like, don't talk glowingly about him.
Right.
What do you mean?
And like I don't know, like, to pull the curtain back a little bit, every time the Capitals have welcomed back a former player from the Stanley Cup team, there's a whole thank you video that shows them in-house. And like, it's the same thing. TV talks about it. Radio talks about it. I don't know why John needed a special kind of no, don't do that. Like, when Lars Eller came back here as a Penguin, he got the thank you. You know, like I don't know. That one just rubs me the wrong way. And it's almost like you're so insecure that you traded him that you don't want to acknowledge it. But that's not what you're servicing. You're supposed to like show the fans, yeah, things didn't go the way we wanted, but he was the heart and soul for 10 years. Here's some great highlights of him jumping up on the scorer's table in that playoff game.
The extreme was what the Orioles did in the summer to Kevin Brown.
Yeah.
The extreme of a pre-produced segment just saying they haven't performed very well against the Rays and just acknowledging that, is not something that should be a fireable offense.
In the middle of a pennant race, by the way.
It's utterly ridiculous.
Where you needed to win. So.
And that's why everybody freaked out and they were like, you can't say that they've lost there? Like, what are you gaslighting the results in Tampa? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
In this case, they'll never listen. And if they want free advice, don't do it. We all know what the line is of being over the top. And if you're gratuitously negative or personal about the players on your team or your organization, I'll hear you on, you need to be reined back in. And I would be on your side about that.
Yeah.
But to sit there and say, don't say nice things about the other team or praise John Wall, you've gone too far.
Agreed.
And I agree with you. It's an insecurity that you need to let go of. This is sports.
You're going to make mistakes. No team, no franchise is perfect.
Correct.
None of them are.
And the bigger indictment, if you want to build a core audience that trusts you and your programming, don't lie to them or sugarcoat everything.
That's right.
Because when you do, people look at it and walk away and they go, that's not even real. It's North Korean state television is what ends up happening. And nobody, like, if you want to say our fans are smart, then treat them like they are.
Right. There are two parts to this, and I know we got to take a break, but one of them is this. You and I talk about how now in the NFL team accounts don't hesitate to put out opinion pieces anymore on their official Twitter accounts.
It's been a recent shift.
Sure.
For a long time, nobody did it.
No, I know. But in the last 2 years, it's happened. Like, so much so that the Cowboys had that article where they were throwing Dak under the bus and everybody was talking about it, right?
That's right?
You and I have had this discussion. If you're not giving actual opinions out, your fan base is going to go elsewhere to get it.
Correct.
And you have a lot riding on a network of your two major teams, and I know the Mystics and the Go-Go and everything else, but you and I both know the two main pistons of this operation are the Capitals and the Wizards. I would say don't shy away from letting your people just do their jobs.
Do their jobs.
That's it. Like, that's where I will leave it at that, because I think you are making a mistake if you want to sugarcoat these two teams, especially when they're kind of niche. Your real fans are the ones watching the game. Yeah. Honestly, just let it play out.
Correct.
Because when he says let the ball lie, that's not what you did. Or allegedly, that's not what you did.
Am I supposed to go in the air this weekend and pretend the Washington defense has been good this year?
Right.
And the team wouldn't expect me to do that.
Exactly.
I don't need to gratuitously attack them, but to sit there and go, well, they're actually good, guys, would be stupid.
Yes, exactly.
And treating people like they're dumb.
Yeah,
and nobody wants that.
Yeah.